Kansas City Chiefs versus the Cincinnati Bengals. Who to start, who to sit, and pigskin pick'em. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and here's my co-host, Jeffrey.
Good afternoon, Bay Nation.
Let's start off with the home team, the Cincinnati Bengals. Jeffrey?
Quarterbacks.
Joe Burrow had the best game of his career last week. 500 yards, absolutely incredible. This man was destroying the Baltimore Ravens, but Chiefs aren't the Ravens. I actually think that this is a tougher matchup for him. The Chiefs are a better defense than the Ravens. The Ravens secondary is terrible. The Chiefs secondary is better. Joe Burrow's definitely still startable, but he's not going to finish as the number one quarterback this week. I think that he's going to be a low-end quarterback one. Next.
Wide receivers.
Jamar Chase is obviously a must-play every single week, but like I told y'all last week, T. Higgins was going off. Woo! That man went crazy last week. 2 touchdowns, 194 yards. This man went crazy. I love it. T. Higgins is another start this week. Fire him up. I'm not really looking to fire up Tyler Boyd, but if you're desperate, I think he's a flex play at best. Moving on.
Running backs.
Joe Mixon's a monster this year. I think you play him every single week. Next.
Tight ends.
CJ Uzomah could always get into the end zone, but I'm really not relying on it. If you're desperate, maybe. Next.
Defenses.
No, not playing a defense against Kansas City Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes. I'm good. Next.
Kicker.
You know, this kicker's actually been pretty solid. I think that you can play him if you need him. Moving on to the Kansas City Chiefs.
Quarterbacks.
You're going to play Patrick Mahomes every single week. He's a beast. Next.
Wide receivers.
Tyreek Hill had a terrible game last week, and he's actually had a couple other bad games this month as well, but he is getting over this COVID situation. I think you play Tyreek Hill because you're in championship week, and he got you here. Next.
Running backs.
This is interesting. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, or CEH, has been injured with a shoulder injury. There's a chance that he doesn't play. If he doesn't play, I think Darrell Williams is going to get some work, as well as Derek Gore. Darrell Williams will be a high-end running back too, and Derek Gore will be more of a flex play. Next.
Tight ends.
Travis Kelce is coming off the COVID list, and I definitely think you fire him up. He's the best tight end in the league. Next up.
Defenses.
I'm not playing the Chiefs defense against the Bengals. No, thank you. That's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this matchup. Now it's time for Pigskin Pick'em. Jeffrey, what's the spread?
The Chiefs are 4.5-point favorites against the Bengals.
I think this is going to be a closer one, but I got to go with the Chiefs because I feel like they can pull away at the end. This can be a very close matchup. The Bengals played fantastic last week, and the Chiefs are the Chiefs. So that's going to do it for this fantasy outlook. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Good luck in your matchups this week. Jeffrey, you have anything to say?
See you soon, Bay Nation.
Peace. The Baltimore Ravens versus the Los Angeles Rams. Who to start, who to sit, and pigskin pick'em. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and here's my co-host, Jeffrey.
Good afternoon, Bay Nation.
Let's start off with that home team, the Baltimore Ravens. Jeffrey?
Let's start with the quarterback position.
This is actually where it gets interesting. Lamar Jackson is currently dealing with an ankle injury. He's questionable to play. If he doesn't play, Tyler Huntley will be his backup. Now, Tyler Huntley is coming off of the COVID list, so he also is not 100%. I'm personally trying to stay away from this quarterback room if I can, for sure. Next.
Wide receivers.
Marquise Brown is also dealing with his own injury. It's more of an illness, though. He's sick, but not COVID. I'm really not excited about starting him either. I have him more as a flex play, and I'll be starting nobody else on the Ravens receiving core. Next.
Running backs.
Devonta Freeman's been pretty solid. The Rams are a great run defense, though. I think the Freeman should slide in as a flex play at best. Next.
Tight ends.
Mark Andrews is one of the best tight ends in the league. You fire him up every single week. Next.
Defenses.
No, you do not want to play the defense against the Rams this week. Their defense has been terrible. They are very weak against the receivers, and I think that this should be a rough game for Baltimore, so you're going to sit them.
Kicker.
And you play Justin Tucker because he's Justin Tucker. He's an absolute beast. You play him every week. Moving on to the Los Angeles Rams. Jeffrey?
Let's start with the quarterback position.
Matthew Stafford had a rough week last week, but I think he bounces back against Baltimore. Baltimore is one of the worst teams in the league going against quarterbacks and wide receivers. This should be a field day. Next.
Wide receivers.
You start Cooper Kupp every single week. He is probably why you are in your championship right now, and possibly the MVP of fantasy football this year. But Odell Beckham Jr. and Vance Jefferson, I do think can be started. OBJ, I think, has a little bit more upside. I have Odell Beckham Jr. as a wide receiver 2 and Van Jefferson as a flex with upside. Next.
Running backs.
So Darrell Henderson is actually on IR with a knee injury. So that bumps up Sony Michel to the #1 man. If he wasn't before, he is now. It's very clear cut. Cam Akers is coming off of his Achilles injury, but I don't think he's going to be getting very much work if he does get any work. So I think Sony Michel is going to be a fantastic play. Fire him up as a running back 1 this week. Next.
Tight ends.
Tyler Higbee's been meh so far this year. If you need him, start him, but there are probably other options out there that I like better. Tight end landscape this year has been terrible. What can you do? Next.
Defenses.
Rams defense I think should be pretty solid. I think you can play them as a low end start. Next.
Kicker.
And the kicker's been pretty great. I think you fire him up every week. So that's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this game. Now it's time for Pigskin Pick'em. Jeffrey, what's the spread?
The Rams are 3.5 point favorites against the Ravens.
I'm going to have to go with the Rams on this one. I just like their offense better. They're less banged up. They have a quarterback that's not injured. Wide receivers not coming off of illness. I think all around the Rams are a better team. Ravens are on a decline. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Jeffrey, do you have any comments before we head off?
See you soon, Bay Nation.
Good luck in the finals this week. Peace. The Minnesota Vikings versus the Green Bay Packers. Who to start, who to sit, and Pigskin Pick'em. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and here's my co-host, Jeffrey.
Good afternoon, Bay Nation.
Let's start off with that home team, the Green Bay Packers. Jeffrey?
Quarterbacks.
You fire up Aaron Rodgers every single week. He's an absolute beast. He's having an MVP type year, but the only downside to this is Kirk Cousins isn't on the other side. There's a chance that this is going to be a lower scoring game because he won't need to score as much. They may need to run it a little more. But you're in the championship, you're playing Aaron Rodgers, let's be real. Next.
Wide receivers.
Devontae Adams is an absolute beast. You fire him up every single week. Now the other piece is a little more up in the air. Marquez Valdez-Scantling, or MVS, coming off the COVID list. And then Alan Lazard is also going to be there. I don't think that either one of these have much upside because Kirk Cousins isn't there. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring back-and-forth affair, and if it's not, I don't think these guys are going to have as many opportunities as they would if it was. Next.
Running backs.
You fire up Aaron Jones every week, but I also think you can fire up A.J. Dillon. I think they both are going to get the work in this matchup. Green Bay should be up in this game, which means they're going to run it more. I think that both of these running backs benefit. Next.
Tight ends.
No, I'm good on tight ends. Next.
Defenses.
I think Green Bay's defense should be pretty solid. No Kirk Cousins, nice backup. Now, this offense is still pretty good, but with a backup quarterback, I think it vaults the Packers into play consideration. Moving on to the Minnesota Vikings. Jeffrey?
Quarterbacks.
Kirk Cousins is out in this matchup due to COVID. The backup is Sean Mannion. You're not going to be starting him in this matchup, so next.
Running backs.
You play Dalvin Cook every single week. He's an absolute beast. Fire him up. Next.
Wide receivers.
Justin Jefferson without Kirk Cousins is less exciting. That's unfortunate. Championship matchup doesn't just affect you because of Kirk Cousins, but also who he's throwing the ball to. Justin Jefferson, you're going to play him, but I wouldn't expect as good of a game as if Kirk Cousins was playing. And Adam Thielen is also out for the rest of the year. He has season-ending ankle surgery, unfortunately. So KJ Osborne would be stepping up, but with no Kirk Cousins, I don't really think you can trust KJ Osborne. If you're desperate, play him, but if not, I would really avoid it. I'm not really sure what Sean Mannion's going to be doing with his offense. My guess, they're going to run the ball more. Next.
Tight ends.
Tyler Conklin is more of a desperation play. I'd avoid if I could. Next.
Defenses.
No, you're not playing a defense against Green Bay Packers right now. So that's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this matchup. Now it's time for Pigskin Pick'em. Jeffrey?
The Packers are 6.5 point favorites against the Vikings.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the Green Bay Packers in this one. I just don't have the confidence without Kirk Cousins. Aaron Rodgers is a bad man. And I don't think he's going to have trouble with this divisional rival without Kirk Cousins. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Jeffrey, do you have anything before we head out?
See you soon, Bay Nation.
Good luck in your finals this week. Peace. The Dallas Cowboys versus the Arizona Cardinals. Who to start, who to sit, and pigskin pick'em. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and here's my co-host, Jeffrey.
Good afternoon, Bay Nation.
Starting with the home team, the Dallas Cowboys. Jeffrey.
Let's start with the quarterback position.
Dak Prescott's an absolute beast, but in the last month, 3 of his last 4 matchups, he's been outside the top 12. Hell, he's been outside the top 20. It's been pretty rough. Last week he played great against Washington, but they're Washington. I do think this should be a fine matchup. Arizona's been middle of the pack the last 5 games, and they've been great matchup the last 3 games. So I definitely think that Dak Prescott should have a fine game in this one. Moving on.
Wide receivers.
You start CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper every week. CeeDee Lamb is a wide receiver 1, Amari Cooper is a wide receiver 2. Next.
Running backs.
Zeke has been top 10 the last 2 weeks. I think this is the 3rd week in a row. Fire up your Ezekiel Elliott. I think that you can play Tony Pollard as a flex play. Next.
Tight ends.
Dalton Schultz has proven that he's going to be utilized in this offense. I think you fire him up as a tight end 1. Next.
Defenses.
The Cardinals without DeAndre Hopkins are not the same. I think that the Dallas defense should be pretty solid. And did you see what they did to Washington? Yes, I know it's Washington, but I still think that they should have a fine game. You can fire up the Dallas defense if you need them. And yeah, you can play the kicker. Moving on to the Arizona Cardinals. Jeffrey?
Let's start with the quarterback position.
Kyler Murray's been kind of mad recently. I think you can play him, but he's a low-end quarterback 1. Next.
Wide receivers.
I'm honestly not trying to start almost any of these wide receivers, excluding Christian Kirk. I think Christian Kirk is a solid wide receiver. It's a low-end wide receiver 2, high-end flex play, but I'm really not trying to play A.J. Green or Rondell Moore. Next.
Running backs.
James Conner didn't play last week. He's questionable to play this week. Check the status. I think this is going to come down to another game time decision. The last thing you want is a 0 on your running back spot in the finals. Yikes. Whether he plays or not, though, Chase Edmonds I do think is a fine play. He moves from being a running back 2 to a low-end running back 1, high-end running back 2. And James Conner, if he plays, I think you can play him. They're not going to be putting him out there for no reason. Next.
Tight ends.
Zach Ertz is one of the most reliable tight ends we have in the league right now. I think you fire him up this week. It's a championship week, and Kyler Murray needs somebody to throw it to. Next.
Defenses.
No, I will not be playing the defense against these Dallas Cowboys. No, thank you. So that's going to do it for the fantasy outlook of this matchup. Now it's time for Pigskin Pick'em. Jeffrey, what's the spread?
The Cowboys are 5.5-point favorites against the Cardinals.
Oh, I'm tempted on this one. James Conner's dinged up. They don't have DeAndre Hopkins. I think that the Dallas Cowboys should be able to cover this one. I think it's going to be a little closer, but I got to go with Dallas on this one. The defense has been playing well, and the offense seems to be clicking. I mean, obviously, they scored like 50 points last week. So that's going to do it for this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. Jeffrey, do you have anything before we leave?
See you soon, Bay Nation.
Good luck in your finals. Peace. The Washington football team versus the Philadelphia Eagles. Who to start, who to sit, and pigskin pick'em. I'm your host, Mike Williams, and here's my co-host, Jeffrey.
Good afternoon, Bay Nation.
Let's start off with that home team, the Washington football team. Jeffrey?
Quarterbacks.
Taylor Heinicke has not sniffed the top 12 in the last month. We're not playing him. Next.
Wide receivers.
Terry McLaurin has a terrible matchup going up against Darius Slay and the Philadelphia Eagles. You're going to want to sit him this week if you can. It's really not looking good. Flex play at best. Next.
Running backs.
Antonio Gibson is currently on the COVID list, and it doesn't look like he's going to be playing this week. Now, they've changed the protocol, so there's a chance that he plays, but it's most likely that he's going to be out. Also, J.D. McKissick is also out. He is on IR with a concussion. So that leaves Jared Patterson. He should be the starting running back for this matchup. It's not a good play because the Philadelphia Eagles are fantastic against the run, but if you're desperate and you need somebody out there, he should be getting some run. Next.
Tight ends.
No. Next.
Defenses.
Nope. Defense has been terrible, and I'm good on the kicker. All right, moving on to the Philadelphia Eagles. Jeffrey?
Quarterbacks.
Jalen Hurts should be a solid start in this matchup. He had a nice fantasy lineup 2 weeks ago when he played Washington. I think you fire him up again. He's going to get it done with his legs and a little bit with his arms. I'm very curious to see if Washington can keep up enough to make this a back and forth battle. It's a divisional matchup, so it should be fairly close. Next.
Wide receivers.
Devonta Smith did not have a great outing last time that he played Washington, but I think that this time he should play a lot better. Him and Jalen Hurts missed on a couple downfield connections, but I think he should be fine in this matchup. I think he should be a high-end flex play. Next.
Running backs.
Miles Sanders is currently out with a broken hand. Jordan Howard has a stinger, so Boston Scott's going to step up. I think that he's going to be a starting running back. And if Jordan Howard does sit, I think Boston Scott should be a solid running back too. If Jordan Howard is in, I think it's going to muddy the waters a little bit. But I still think that Boston Scott is playable in this matchup. Next.
Tight ends.
Dallas Goedert has been pretty solid. And the Washington football team does not scare you. Fire him up as a tight end one. Next.
Defenses.
This Eagles defense is actually going to be a solid defense to play this week. Washington hasn't been playing great, and did you see what just happened against Dallas? Woo! That was embarrassing. I don't think this is going to be that bad, but I do think this is going to be a rough game for Washington. All right, that's going to do it for this matchup. Now it's time for Pigskin Pick'em. Jeffrey, what's the spread?
The Eagles are 3.5-point favorites against Washington.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with those Eagles in this one. I think they should have a fine game. The Eagles should be able to take this one by more than 3.5. So that's going to do it in this matchup. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell down below. If you have any questions, hit me up. Good luck in your matchups this week. Peace.